Hello, Eric Sfiligoj, CropLife Magazine's editor, here again at the 2025 Tech Hub Live event with another Fireside chat. My guest right now is Ben Sheldon from New Holland. Ben, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here with us. So again, we wanted to talk a little bit about technology adoption and investment in technology. And again, I know anybody who pays attention to the news and knows this marketplace, commodity prices situation is uneven, tariff situation is uneven. Generally, the financial situation is uneven for a lot of people in the marketplace. So given this environment, what would be your message to folks on why they should be investing in ag technology today?
So much of what's driven adoption for technology in the last 20 years has been ROI focused. When we looked at the launch of things like like auto steer, there was in variable rate, section control, things like that. So much of the focus is on ROI. And it seems like we had a shift there where it was almost shifting to more convenience, right? And how we make a better customer experience. And I think we're getting back to the basics of kind of what started this precision ag journey for a lot of people. And that is investing in technology that's going to support better ROI. Heard it in Canada last week at the farm show there. The sentiment is not changing within the market. Customers are very, very concerned and looking for technology options that may be available to them without potentially buying new equipment. And that's one of the important things in our line of work is how do we give options for technology adoption when it's not necessarily, or a new piece of equipment is not necessarily on the table. So for us, it's how do we position and how do we bring to market some of the new technology, either in the retrofit or aftermarket perspective, where customers can come in and still take advantage of technology, potentially with new or their existing fleet, to hopefully fend off or hedge against some of this ROI challenge.
Okay. I've heard the argument made again when they're talking about technology adoption. There's one camp that has told me that, given the grower of today, it used to be they wanted it as easy as 1, 2, 3. Now they want it easy as 1. Push the button and it does what it's supposed to do in the marketplace. Yeah. And then there's the other camp that says, well, that's important, but it has got to show me the value, the ROI at the bottom, at the end of the day. What camp would you fall in if you had to pick in that sense?
It depends where we're at in the market cycle. I think as we go through areas or periods of downturns, when commodity prices become a bit more stringent and becomes more challenging, we're going to see more of the sentiment for some of these purchases going more towards ROI. I think when times are good and we start to see more crop indexes starting to come up on the rise, that's where we're going to start to see more strategic investments that are maybe more customer experience focused, convenience, ease of use, ease of operation, and things like that.
Okay. And you mentioned, of course, commodity prices. I know we were talking just briefly. I was at a session yesterday where somebody said commodity prices, of course, are always important, but, the ability for the grower community to get credit, that has really tightened up in the last year or two, and it doesn't look like it's going to get much looser as we move forward going into the 2026 season. So how does the grower community, how do the grower customers and the ag retailers that are servicing them, how do they try to balance this credit crunch, if you will, as one of the new hurdles to get over when we're talking about investing in new technology?
Well, that's an interesting one. I think part of the answer to that is the OEMs and those who are responsible for bringing technology to market need to provide options that are a bit more customer friendly for them to take advantage or to get on this adoption journey to new technology. I think looking at the credit crunch in itself, customers who are more progressive, growers who are more progressive are always going to gravitate towards technology that's going to give them an advantage in the marketplace. So for us, we see the value of it. We see the challenge that growers are going through. So again, for us, it's how do we get or provide opportunities that help customers get into newer technology despite everything going on in the market.
Okay. So, of course, you're with New Holland. Tell me about some of the technology advances that New Holland has in the marketplace, and how are you trying to get the message that what we've been talking about? How are you trying to get these messages across to potential customers that now is a good time to invest?
Yeah. So if you've paid attention to what's going on and some of the acquisitions that have taken place in the last 5 years, New Holland and its parent company, CNH, have certainly not been hiding the checkbook. We've been going out and making several acquisitions, biggest one being with Raven, but also with Hemisphere and Augmenta, which all kind of come together for an integrated technology stack, which is what we've been pursuing, as it's something that we always haven't had the most congruent offering of the last 10, 20 years or so. So when it comes to when we look at really the journey that we're on, which is this journey towards autonomy, I think there's this almost inclination for the industry to want to step and go to the very end first. And there's a lot of things that have to happen first. So the big focus for us right now is automation. One of the best stories that I can tell, and I know we're in Iowa, this actually took place out on the West Coast, and the farm is about 2 hours from Silicon Valley, right? The technology hub of the world. And we started talking to a customer. There was a demo going on at the farm show out there. And he's like, look at all this autonomy. Like, this is what's going to make a difference on my farm. This is what's going to help my bottom line. Like, this is what I need to fend off some of the labor challenges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, everything that's been plaguing them. And as we're sitting there talking, I asked, like, what are some of the features that you're using for technology today? Like, you want to go straight to autonomy. What are you using today? Just auto guidance, any kind of data collection, things like that. And he said, pressure and speed. I'm using an on and off sprayer. So for you guys who have been spraying for a long time, he's talking about just using pressure and speed. And for us, that was kind of eye-opening to see that there's opportunities available to growers today, specifically around automation. I think there's this perception that if we go straight to autonomy, it's going to fix all of our problems. Before we go there, let's focus on what we have today and some of the challenges that you're facing today and what the solutions are. So our big focus is autonomy. And that's kind of a long-winded way of saying, when you look at the experience, whether it's traditional, tractor and row crop operations, specifically around spraying, how much of that experience and how much of the customers or the operators' awareness and the different tasks that are going on within the cab of that sprayer can we automate? So that's where some of the See and Spray or perception-based technology, so with the acquisition of Augmenta comes into play, is what can we do to simplify the user journey and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis that will eventually play into the autonomy piece here in the next few years.
Interesting. Now, I know before we came on, you had told me you had just returned from a big trade show up in Canada.
Yep.
So while you were there, did you see anything that was particularly eye-opening that has potential it to be not necessarily a game changer, but at least interesting enough to check out going into the 2026 season?
It's always tough. Typically, technology companies and OEMs get a little more conservative during down markets, and you can kind of see that. It shows when you go and visit. I'm always encouraged by Canada, specifically Western Canada, with some of the local manufacturers and their ability to innovate. One of the things that we're noticing is even some of the most basic controls for air seeders, right? That's their bread and butter. That is the 24-row planter, that is to us the 24-row planter that keeps Canada agriculture going. Even in some cases, there's not a lot of automation taking place there. So it's things like just section control, variable rate, the adoption isn't as high as you might think. So it wasn't necessarily new technology for me there's a new startup, there was this new investment that kind of caught everyone's eye. It was the general sentiment that Canadian farmers who have been kind of pushing against or holding back on some of this technology that's been in the industry for a long time are finally starting to get on board with different things like section control, variable rate. And I was encouraged to see that, especially when you look at things like row by row application, row by row variable rate. That was more and more commonly talked about. So unfortunately, I don't have any IPOs or any breaking technology to talk about here. But for me, I was more encouraged that this is probably the most technology-friendly conversation or conversations that I've had at a Canadian farm show or with kind of a Canadian body of farmers.
Okay. Well, and again, most of the ag equipment that I've seen, again, our marketplace, our magazine, we're trying to do this what we call Smart Tech Initiative, where we're looking at the smart technology coming into the marketplace. And I know up until now, a lot of the equipment guys I've talked to, they've said that you have to have the repeatability is one of the keys to making this be effective, which is why you're seeing it in planters and tractors. But I know that this afternoon you're actually going to be giving a talk on smart sprayers. So tell me about smart technology in sprayers and how quickly potentially that might advance as we move forward.
For sure. And so I really enjoyed talking about that topic. And I think we like to look at what can we do today, green on green, green on brown, and some of the different technologies. I like to try to span out 5, 10, 20 years into the future. And what's the goal with perception-based technology? Certainly autonomy is a piece to that, but where are we heading, right? What's some of the opportunity with this? And I firmly believe that we're in the infancy of individual plant-by-plant management. So if you look at where we started 20 years ago, you would shut off a planter, you would shut off a seeder, a sprayer in half, and then it became multiple sections, then it became a couple of rows, and then it became row by row. How far away are we from actually going to the point where you've got 10 different names for each individual plant, Ben, Eric, whoever else it may be, and you're keeping track of that location and the health of that plant? I'm not saying that's coming anytime soon, right? I just want to set some expectations. So please don't go to your local New Holland dealer and say, well, Ben said it's going to be ready. That's not true. But it's encouraging, and it's worth having the conversation to see where we're going as an industry and what some of these technologies, specifically perception-based technology, can do for us.
Very good. Well, Ben Shelton, thanks for joining us for this Fireside Chat. On behalf of everyone here at Tech Hub Live 2025, we hope you enjoy the show, and we'll talk to you soon.